Hi, this is Adam Strong, the podcast host of the Game Changers Experience. And in my episode for the Business Growth Architect Show, I'm going to share with you guys about the insights of Olympic winning athletes and how you can apply that to entrepreneurship, running a business, being a better leader, and breaking it down into small incremental steps in your strategy. From visualization, self-imagery, reverse engineering, we cover everything. We've covered a lot in today's episode. I look forward to hearing from you and some of your comments and questions. Take care. Have a great day.
Hello, fabulous person. Beate Chelette here, the Growth Architect. Welcome back to the Business Growth Architect Show, where we bring you cutting-edge business strategies from some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, business transformation experts, and visionaries who want to help you to scale your impact. Look for one tangible strategy that you can take back and implement right away. And now back to our guest. Welcome. Today, I have a phenomenal guest that I have had quite a few off-the-record conversations, and I'm very excited to have Adam Strong be on the call with me today. Adam, I am so excited for you to be here. Thank you for being on the show. Tell everybody who you are and why do we need to know about you?
I appreciate the wonderful warm introductions, Beate. And listen, I absolutely love our conversations, and this is the first, I suppose, really interaction with some of you guys that are listening in. So super excited and ecstatic about today. So a little bit about myself. Started up as an entrepreneur at the age of 11. Got into extreme elite distance running as well. Had a massive, didn't particularly had a great childhood, but used elite running and entrepreneurship to essentially increase my confidence, learn so many different skill sets that we need to learn in today's world. Things like, for example, mindsets, mental toughness, resilience, all of those juicy topics that what I call core foundations in order to run a successful business. One of my I suppose one of my great stories, my great introduction stories, a lot of people say to me, how did you get into entrepreneurship, Adam? And it all started at the age of 11 when all I needed was a bucket. That was all I needed, was just a bucket, right? And it was when I was 11 years old, and I went out and I was just kind of daydreaming, as kind of any 11-year-old boy does, and just started seeing these golf balls in the rivers and streams not far from where I lived, not actually realizing that it was actually next to a golf course. And then next day I went back with my bucket, right? And then I started collecting all these golf balls. I started jumping in the streams and the rivers. I used to go, and because I didn't have huge amounts of money, my family didn't have huge amounts of money, I couldn't afford the what they call Wellington boots in the UK. So effectively it was like, sneakers and socks off, just go in, like hip heights sometimes, like sludging around, foraging through bushes, as you do, right? It's just kind of like, it's one of those
I
things.
got the visual in my head. Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure your mother was very happy when you came back with all the dirt on the shoes. Mm-hmm.
Uh, Actually, I kind of played that to a bit of a trick, actually, because what I did, even though after I was kind of a little bit sludgy and dirty, I always knew where the clean streams were. So I would always wash myself down before I'd go back home. So that was kind of one of my tricks. But so one of my very first interactions was when I had a full bucket of golf balls, which I'd found. I'd got to the 14th hole of the fairway, and I had a couple of guys, it must have been in their late 60s, ran over, and I'm like, hey, watch out, kind of like, obviously they're concerned about, hitting an 11-year-old boy with a golf ball, of course. I mean, anyone would be concerned. And like, what are you doing here? Are we're going to hit you with our golf ball type thing. I'm like, well, I'm here searching for lost golf balls, and then they're like, well, I've only got like one ball left. I've got 4 holes. I don't want this guy to beat me. What have you got in your bucket? And they started seeing different brands: Dunlop, Nike, Slazenger, different colors, different brands, different conditions. And all of these things were really important to a golfer, of course. And some of these balls that you'd buy brand new for like 10, 15, $20 a piece. I then started learning sales and negotiation very quickly. So I didn't realize this, but my first interaction, it was like, I'd probably given away too many golf balls for cheap, but then I started researching what are the higher price ones, right? Couldn't really distinguish what the brands were, right? Because I wasn't a golfer. I was an 11-year-old boy, for God's sake. And so then I was like, okay, when I started getting used to this, then I started commanding higher prices. They'd start off silly prices, say like, I'll give you $5. And then I knew for a fact that that ball was at least $20 in the shop. So then I'd kind of maybe walk away, with $12 in my pocket. But they'd be like, they'd be smiling like a Cheshire cat because they knew they'd got an absolute killer bargain. And all I was doing is just rescuing their lost golf balls. And so that was where that was my real first taste of entrepreneurship. And so I guess the rest is history.
I love that. Your story is not unlike my story. I used to sell posters out of my bedroom when I was, probably around 11, 12 years old. And I did that because I didn't have enough money to buy the posters, but I figured if I was a poster reseller, not just did I get, if I sold a certain amount, I could order certain ones for myself, but sometimes I made a mistake in the order. And then I got extra ones because somebody was mistaking. And so I had extra profit.
Love it, love it, love it, love it.
So very, very, very similar story here. So you do a lot of business coaching, consulting. I want to talk to you about strategy because you just shared with us that the elite running and the running the business. So there, you already mentioned mindset, mental toughness, and things like that. So talk to us about what's strategy as a concept to you and your business, and how do you use it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, strategy is a bit like a game plan. So if you can imagine, right, a runner, okay, say he wants to, in my case, my competition was my time. I used my time as my competition. So what I had to do is, and I had to formulate a strategy to reverse engineer. Now, say for example, now one of my big goals was to complete 10 kilometers in under 40 minutes. That was my big goal. Like for me, that was like, that would set me aside from all the other young runners out there. If I hit below 40, I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to put myself up there as pretty damn good. And so what I had to do, a strategy to me is a bit like reverse engineering the process, right? Breaking it down into small bite-sized chunks and say, right, what is it that I need to do over a set period of time? So if, for example, I don't know, I wanted to do 40 minutes and 10K and say in 3 months time. Great. So what are the things that I need? I need speed. I need endurance. I need to probably cross combine some of the exercises that I need to do. I need have some variety as well to prevent injury, right? So I need to have some weight training in there. I might need to be in the pool, for example. So I need to start, thinking about how I can formulate and see how I can best execute and, achieve that goal effectively. Business is no different. Now, again, it depends on but there are core foundations, first of all, that you need in place before any strategy comes into place, right? We've talked about this offline. And we've talked about mindset, so crucially important, because if you don't have a belief system, because that's what it's about having a belief system. If you don't believe in your product and service, and guess what? No strategy in the world is going to help you achieve your goal. It doesn't matter what you do. It's a bit like if you came to me and said, hey, Adam, I know that you did a marathon, but I'd like you to teach me how to run a marathon, but I'd like you to teach me how to run a marathon in under 3 hours. Great, fantastic. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, where's your belief system? Maybe a 2. If it's a 2, then it's definitely not going to work, right? It doesn't matter what strategy I give you. It doesn't matter if it was the world record breaking running strategy about how to complete a marathon under 3 hours, it's still not going to work because the belief system isn't there. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I love that. So I have a question for you that I don't think I've ever asked on the show, because you
Mm,
just said when you get ready, and I love the example of the running, because I think that business is very much like a marathon. Anybody who thinks it's
right.
a sprint, well, good luck with that. But
Mm,
you said maybe I have to go in the pool, maybe I have to do weights. I have to obviously do the running. I have to do the mental part. So these are not all of these things are seemingly related to your goal. What do you
mm,
do when you
mm,
hit something and let's say you hate going in the pool? I mean, you're in England. It's not always exactly like it's a sunny weather where you want to put your speedos on and jump in the outdoor pool. Uh,
right.
except lately, I hear. But how do you love everything? And if you don't love everything that's necessary to achieve your goal by using these strategies, how do you overcome that inner resistance of saying like, oh God, the pool again?
Mm. Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think from my perspective, you've got to look at the bigger picture. That's the only thing that I can think about is looking at the bigger picture. What do I mean by that? It's like, well, okay, so if it's important to you, like for me, as I use the running example, to run under 40 minutes in my 10K, that was important to me. Like that was like, for me, I felt that that was like one of the most important things in my life. That was one of my big whys. And so what you've then got to turn is you've got to condition again that mindset of, is it as important to me, number one? And also, can I visualize it? So in elite athletics, they use techniques of self-imagery and visualization, right? So can you picture yourself from achieving it? If you can, great. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Okay. And, again, this isn't woo-woo stuff. This is like, there are different elements of strategy. So it's a bit like different elements of energy. You have the strategy itself, so you've got the current kind of crux, but then there are emotions attached to that. There's the mental aspect attached to that. There are different elements that kind of kind of create the whole picture, if you like. The whole it's a bit like if I wanted to create a cake or whatever it is, right? What are the ingredients that need to go? What are the exact ingredients that I need to put into that cake in order for it to be an amazing cake, right? Because if those missing ingredients are missing, then it's just not going to go right. It's not going to taste right. Do you see my point? So I hope that kind of answers your analogy a little bit.
Yeah, so if I were to rephrase that or recap that for the audience, I would say that you have trained yourself to not even look at on whether or not you like a particular activity, but that you are looking at it from the perspective of what do I need to do? And then there is no judgment. If you know the steps that you need to take and what you need to do, then you're just going to execute that. And the reason I wanted to go down that road with you today, Adam, is because I think that there's a lot of stuff that happens in entrepreneurship, business owners, coaches, consultants, expert visionaries, leaders, where they go, yeah, but that I don't like. I don't like to do that. And so
Mm,
they're avoiding that.
mm,
And that happens to be the thing that they really need to execute on. So, I'm building this quiz right now. And
mm,
I mean, it sounds really great, but then when you really dive into it, there are the videos and there are the websites and there's the buckets, and then you have the versions of it, and then you have to build the products that come out with it. Then you have to do
mm,
the PDF,
mm,
and suddenly, something that sounded so easy now has 250 different items that, of which really I don't want to do all of them. And then there comes a point where you say, well, can I take a shortcut here? So talk to us
mm.
about when you catch yourself with a disciplined way you do this. When you catch yourself wanting to take a shortcut or saying, well, I'm going to skip today. I'm not going to do that today. What do you do to get yourself back on track? I think that's going to be really important for our audience to hear.
That's a really, really good question. And firstly, I want to just quickly say something because there was something that I picked up from what you said before. And normally, when it comes to running a business or being an entrepreneur, there are going to be activities that you simply don't enjoy doing, right? It's the same as anything. Like, again, I'll go back to the running analogy. If I said to you, Beate, you need to do 50 burpees and increase it by 5 every week for the next 8 weeks, you're going to hate me by the end of that. But for a fact the benefit that it's going to give you. And the reason why people avoid activities or things that they don't enjoy doing is because they're simply not good at it. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like anything. If I said to you, are you any good at press ups? You'd be like, might be able to do 5 or 10, but then I'm going to get sick and tired of it, right? But generally, most people are avoiding those activities, whether it be building a landing page, building a quiz, or whatever it is, and thinking about the fact that, you know what? Yes, it's an easy activity, but actually it's not so easy, because guess what? We've got to take into consideration all of the bells and whistles that come with those different things. And then suddenly you've gone something which is so small into something which is absolutely massive, but at the end of the day, you're giving huge amounts of value to your audience. So I'll go back to your question that you've answered, which is about shortcuts, right? What do I need to do to avoid creating those shortcuts? Is that what you said, Beate?
Yeah, there were two things, and you picked up on it, and I think you already answered one. One is, I try to do a shortcut. The other one is to avoid things I don't like. And I think you answer that by saying, if you are avoiding something, then it's because you are not good at it. And then the logical conclusion, I would say, is like, well, when you catch yourself, then stop everything else and do that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit like, for example, like for me and you, we know our passions and our strengths in our business, right? Generally, the things that we're not so good at are the things that we tend to avoid because they cause pain, because we're not good at them, because we have a lack of knowledge, because, hey, guess what? Your time is probably spent elsewhere, because where your strength lies in your business. It's exactly the same as everyone that's listening in right now. There are activities, there are skill sets, or whatever it is, whether it be sales, whether it be marketing, whether it be branding, whatever it might be. Look at what's happening from a top-down perspective and say, okay, what are the things that I'm good at in my business? What are the things I really enjoy? Do I enjoy talking to people? Do I enjoy jumping on the phone? Do I enjoy creating? Do I enjoy coming up with new ideas? And all the other stuff that you basically probably spend at least 4 to 5 times more time on, because it's like a bit of a ball ache and you end up procrastinating on the task and stuff like that. Avoid those things and say, how can I then delegate those things out to somebody that is highly more passionate about it, and number two, much more highly proficiently skilled than I am? Don't worry about the money, because the money will come. And a lot of people get, yeah, I get it. When you're first starting up a business, you have to wear multiple different hats. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, me and you both. But at the end of the day, as you start to grow, the only way to grow is to then start, delegating those things out. It's a bit like, think about elite athletics. I'll go back to elite athletics again, right? If we look at some of the top Olympians out there, right? So Mo Farah was my former training partner. He's the current world and Olympic world champion. Now, do you think it's just him creating a success? No. You've got his chiropractor, you've got his medical team, you've got his nutritionists, his dietitians, you've got his biomechanics team, you've got a whole array of people sitting behind the shadows, working towards his common goal, but they're all aligned. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, I think that exactly answers the purpose on why I do the Business Growth Architect show, for that exact reason, because I find that that's the number one misunderstood fact when it comes to strategy, that people think that if they just find one internet marketing guru that comes up with the idea that doing nothing in 2 hours a week, you're going to action extra $1 million, and then they're surprised that that's not working. The entire idea is exactly what you said, that to be successful in business is very much like that. You have to have a mindset coach. You have to have a coach that makes sure that you are finding a work-life balance. You have to have a coach that teaches you how to close. You have to have a
Mm,
coach that, and a strategy in place that helps you to really map out the goal and how to get
mm.
there. I mean, certain things you can do yourself that you're naturally good at, but for everything else, you need some sort of a strategy. So I really love that. So let's dive into what is going to be your favorite strategy to share with our audience just right after this message. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for investing in yourself. Thank you for taking the time to learn the strategies that will help you to grow your authority and scale your impact. I am Beate Chelette. I am the growth architect. And just because you're here and you're listening to the show, I have two things that I would like to give you. Number one, for the subscribers to our podcast, we have exclusive bonus content that you can pick up at beatechelette.com/bonus. And my second gift to you is a piece from our 5-Star Success Blueprint, our method where we help business owners just like you, experts in their industry, to grow, build, and scale their business to multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, and beyond. And this particular piece is called the Airtight Avatar, and that is our action guide that will help you to identify who your ideal client is in only 15 minutes. You can pick it up at airtightavatar.com. Thank you so much for listening, and now let's get back to the show. And Adam, welcome back. So we were just talking about your example of running and how many team members you really need to build a successful, strong team, pun intended, to achieve your goals. Now I want to dive in and share your favorite strategy, or I mean, you're a strategist, so you probably have like 10 of them, but what's one of your favorite strategies to share?
Yeah, do you know what? I've got a few actually. If it, I've got a few that I really enjoy working with at the moment, and I have to admit, one of my most favorite strategies has got to be on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn for me is kind of one of those social media platforms that, number one, has changed so much over the last 6 to 12 months. But I think one of the things that I really love about the platform is its functionality and its usability now. So one of the things, and I'll tell you what I do on a weekly basis, and I'll kind of give you some insights about what I do on a daily basis. So on a Sunday evening, I like to plan out the things that we want to achieve during the week, short-term goal-wise, but also what are the content that we want to create throughout the week as well. So that's kind of like, for me, absolutely paramount. Monday, what are we doing? Okay, we're doing some LinkedIn Live for 10 minutes. We're going to do, on Tuesday, we're doing the podcast release. On Wednesday, we're going to release an article. Thursday, we're going to have another podcast. We're maybe on Clubhouse on Friday. So like all of the things for me, like one of the things that I'm known for is adding huge amounts of value. Value is very subjective, of course, but I love, literally, if you want in any, it doesn't matter, especially in this day and age, with everything that's going on in the world, you need visibility. You need to get your voice out there, because otherwise you're going to be speaking to tumbleweeds like for the rest of your life. I'm not kidding you. So, so one of the things that I really love to do, like one of the, so here's the thing, like I got to think about like, what is it that I want to achieve? So one of the things that we are always focusing is lead generation all the time. Lead generation is all the time. If you are a business that is earning under 8 figures, guess what? Your strategy should be lead generation. That's the end of the story. And then you can like grow and scale from there. But effectively, one of the things that we love to do is every day, Monday to Friday, maybe a few gaps here and there, I do a 10-minute business accelerator live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And all it is literally topic-based, value-driven, hard-hitting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bang, next topic. And then I'll do another one for another day. And literally, the great thing I love about that particular strategy is that, number one, is it creates engagement, and I love engaging with the audience. But also, number two, what people are then going to do, they're going to like, huh, like I met a guy today, right? I never knew him. Okay. I'm in Sweden at the moment. So I'm in Sweden at the moment. And this guy, I completely didn't know him at all. I met him on the bus. I was on the bus today, right, this morning, okay, taking my kids to school. And they're like, hey, so your name's Adam Strong, right? It wasn't at the, actually, in fact, it was just after the bus. Hey, your name's Adam Strong. I'm like, yeah. He goes, I've seen you everywhere. I'm like, what do you mean you've seen me everywhere? They're like, yeah, I've seen you on LinkedIn. I'm like, I'm on LinkedIn a lot, man. I've seen you on LinkedIn a lot. I'm like, really? I'm like, great. Well, I must be doing something correctly. So that like really made my day. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like using certain hooks, creating curiosity, whatever it might be. This was a complete stranger. I never knew who he was. I never seen him in my life. He just randomly come up to me and just say, "You're Adam Strong." I'm like, yeah. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of times we just don't see that it's happening. But I agree with you that lead generation is probably the thing most businesses are really bad at. A lot of them relying on referrals, and
Mm,
then they don't know how to turn on a client attraction system, which is why we are launching the quiz, because we realize that without client attraction system, and a lot of people just don't know what works, right? So what used to
100%.
work in LinkedIn is not working right now. What used to work in direct mail is not working right now. So
Yep.
how does that all work? So I think that is excellent advice. So Adam, question for you. So you obviously have I know you have a family. You like to run. And so how do you sort of find this balance? What's it about for you? Is it about making an impact? Is it about making the money? Is it about taking care of your family? Why do you do what you do?
I think my biggest thing that really fuels me is my purpose. It's not money. It's always been purpose. Um, you know, because if I live by my purpose, then I'm doing my passion. I'm a happy man. Everything else, running, there are a few things that are non-negotiables for me, right? So keeping yourself physically fit is a non-negotiable, personal development, non-negotiable, right? Um, was going to say engaging and always out there in the big wide world, even though sometimes you might not feel like you're being noticed. Hey, I've just kind of given you a great analogy there. Um, but, just continue to do what you do, because I can guarantee you that sometimes, I hear the story, right? It's interesting. You hear the story where you would have seen this on an infographic where you're like 1 millimeter from the gold mine and then you turn back and you give up, right? You've seen that. I'm sure you've seen that as an
I saw that
infographic
graphic many, many, many times.
many,
Yes.
many, many times, right? It's a famous thing in the leadership realm, but it's so true. There are so many people that give up just at the wrong. They just don't know how close they are from the gold mine. And the thing is, same with podcasting, same with email marketing, right? You have to continually, right? Even though you feel like you might be speaking to yourself, 90% of the time, potentially, I can guarantee you it's those what I call marginal gains, right? As little tiny marginal gains. And that's the difference between winning a silver medal and a gold medal.
I think that is very, very, very true. I believe that we often are so judgmental in what we assume our results need to be or should
Mm,
be, that instead of believing and trusting that what we're doing is the right thing at the right time, we're constantly questioning on whether or not it's the right thing. I'm reading this book right now from Iolana, uh, who does the Fix My Life thing, and she written a book
mm,
called Trust. And I find the promise of this book that what do you really trust? You have to trust yourself. You have to trust God or spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. You
mm.
have to really believe in that part of that what you're doing is is purposeful. And I think that is why so many people give up, because they believe that if they follow their passion or their purpose, that there comes the point where there's a guy with a bell who rings and says you have arrived. But the margins you're talking about, these are increments. And it's like Darren Hardy calls it the compound effect. And so little by little by little, it just adds up, right? Until you're feeling it. So I like your idea of not giving up and to keep going the course, because I feel very much like you that that's the number one problem. Or then when you make the plan and then people say, yeah, but if I go down that road, then I have to invest in that. Or what if then it gets really busy and I can't handle it because then I'm too busy? I'm like, you're going to figure it out. Then that's the next level. Then you need another strategy. So we have this tendency to talk ourselves out of it. So I like the idea. So let's just make sure we got this recap for the audience. Make sure you're clear about where you want to go. There will be tasks that you do not like. There will tasks that you love. You're going to do both of them, because that is what you set out in the goal that you reverse engineer step by step to achieve. And don't give up, because you could be 2 feet away from the goal. So Adam, how can we find out more about you? Somebody heard this and said, man or woman, I need to know more about Adam. Where do I go?
Well, I think probably the best places to go find me is LinkedIn, as I mentioned that. So you can check me out on LinkedIn, of course. I have my own podcast where Beate has been on as well, called The Game Changers Experience, which was a lot of fun. So if you want to check her episode out.
Make sure you say the name of the podcast so they can check it out right away.
Yeah, sorry. It's called The Game Changers Experience. So that's the name of the podcast. Feel free to check that out as well. And feel free to check me out on my website. It's called adamstrong.net. Those are probably my 3 main places where you can kind of find me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Great. Love it. Thank you very much.
And that's it for us today. Thank you for listening and watching the Business Growth Architect Show. I enjoyed having you here. And for accountability, just take one of the strategies that you have heard, one thing that you can implement in your business immediately. Please leave comments. Don't forget to like and share this show. And if you have any questions about business, please put them in the comments. We are here for you. We're here to support you and help you to grow, build, and scale your own business. For more advice, please check out our website in the show notes below. Thank you again. This is Beate Chelette, the Growth Architect, and goodbye.